they told you everything you need to know. I mean, their offense is just stuck in neutral. It's just stuck in neutral. There's no excitement. There's no expectation. There's no leadership. I know Aaron Rodgers is standing on the sideline. I think it's important for him to be around to help Zach through some games like this. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to one thing in the NFL. You either win or you lose. And I think that it's obvious to every single one who watches these games just how there is just no rhythm whatsoever for their offense. You know, they ran 77 plays last night, which is amazing. On third down, they were 3 of 17. They had 8 penalties for 40 yards. A number of those penalties were pre-snap penalties, which are the worst types of penalties. And what that is, that's a disconnect between the quarterback and the offensive line and the false starts and crap like that. And that's just nervousness from the quarterback. You know, the offensive line's not sure when the ball's being snapped. There were 8 sacks for another 57 yards lost. There were 3 turnovers, 2 by Zach Wilson, fumbling the football and giving the Chargers amazing field position. I don't know what else to tell you. They also let up a punt return, as we all know, at the beginning of the game. I mean, it was just... there's no life. Like, remember we were talking about the Bills and the Bengals, and we watched the first 3 series of that game, and it was like a quarterback masterclass.
Sure.
Stand in the pocket, throw the ball to the guy that's open. Defenses can't get to you. Offensive lines blocking, quarterback standing in there, throwing the ball perfectly, and leading their teams to touchdowns. It's almost as if the other 10 guys in the huddle are not even thinking about getting into the end zone simply because the guy that is supposed to be leading them into the end zone, they all have lost their confidence in. And I know it was a tough game to do from a broadcasting standpoint last night. I give those guys a lot of credit because, you know, it is just brutal watching it. And when you actually have to describe what's going on and there is just absolutely no belief that you can score a touchdown, let alone 3 or 4 touchdowns. The last time they scored a touchdown was when?
Well, they've had 8 touchdowns in 8 games. And as CeeLo pointed out this morning, one of those touchdowns they were given. They didn't try to stop them to get into the end zone. So they've scored 7 touchdowns in 8 games where the defense was actually trying. And it's as bad as it gets. It's the worst in the NFL. I mean, and the last time they scored a touchdown.
Well, it can't be the worst in the NFL. I think the Cardinals.
No, it is. I think it's the worst in the NFL.
I mean, the Cardinals currently. After last week, I mean,
no, I'm saying over
offense.
the course of the season, they are the worst in the NFL. It's a fact. 32nd in the league in amount of touchdowns scored.
You know, and it is, as they were saying last night, as we have said here, and as many people have said around the area, and everybody talking about the Jets, they do have a top-notch defense. They have a playoff defense. You can't have a mistake on special teams for sure if your offense is going to be like it is, it's stuck in neutral, man. It's just
neutral. How about reverse?
Well, you could say reverse.
Worse.
I was just going to say neutral. Like, they have no belief that they can score a touchdown. And that's all coming and stemming from the guy who's playing quarterback. Now, I'm not sitting here, they had drop passes last night again. They had, miscommunication on the offensive line again. He's holding on to the ball way too long. He does not want to throw an interception. I know all of those things. And they're not going to put Tim Boyle out there unless he gets hurt. And, Aaron Rodgers can sit here and float all these things. I'm coming back in a few weeks and all this other stuff. I mean, I think that he's not doing anybody any favors by saying what he's saying. But at the end of the day, the proof is in the performance. And the performance is, one word describes it, brutal.
Yeah, and I'm done trying to say that the Jets that should go to another quarterback because they're never going to do it. I mean, I've been begging for that for 2 years now. Last year at the start of the season, after he got hurt, him coming back, all these times I said, bench him, don't put him back out there. This year, same thing, find somebody else. It's impossible. They're not going to put anybody else out there but Zach Wilson. They have proven that to us. I mean, they bring in Trevor Siemian. He's in plain clothes. They don't have him dressed. Obviously, you could use the third emergency quarterback. They decide not to do that. Tim Boyle's been there. They're not going to put Tim Boyle in there. I mean, and those guys may not be any better as bad as Zach Wilson has been. So, we'll probably take some calls today of people saying you got to bench him, you got to put someone else back in. Joe Douglas, Rob Saleh, this organization have proven to us time and time again that they're going to either succeed or go down, and we're all watching them go down again with number 2. That's what they're doing. They're going down with them. And this was a team that felt really good about themselves after the Eagles game going into the bye, and have come out of that bye and were an inch away from losing to a team that had negative passing yards, an inch away. It was a miracle that they won that game, and then just got their asses kicked on Monday Night Football by a team that is notoriously soft, coming across the country with an idiot head coach and a miserable defense. Don't tell me that the Chargers are a good team. They came into this game under 500 with one of the worst defenses in the league, and you got blown out in your building. It's embarrassing. And Rob Saleh's got to get some heat too, obviously, as the head coach. And I was actually mad at CeeLo driving in because he brought this up, and this was going to be one of my main things today. They showed Rob Saleh on the sideline about 150 times yesterday doing nothing. He stands there staring into space with his arms crossed. And I know sometimes it's unfair to just judge by like little moments in the game, but they must have shown him legitimately 25 to 30 times just standing there. And we all watch Red Zone. You watch all the games on the NFL today. Find me another coach that does that little amount of talking and moving during a football game, especially when you're getting your ass kicked. You go around the league, guys, the team's getting their ass kicked. The coach is down there. He's got stuff. He's showing people. He's yelling at people. I mean, Brian Daboll's had a miserable year, but Evan Neal comes off the field. What the F? Bill Belichick screaming at refs. It happens all over the place. But Rob Saleh's just standing there like a monument, staring out into the field going, I don't know what to do. I have no idea how to fix this. I can't fix this because that guy can't play the position. And that, to me, is alarming. And you've talked about how hard it was to do the game last night from a Joe Buck and Troy Aikman standpoint. Troy Aikman did not hold back at all.
Well, he shouldn't.
On Zach Wilson and Rob Saleh. At the end of the game, he's talking about if you can't get lined up, I mean, give me a break. And he goes, I understand you've had your issues with the offensive line and the quarterback, but you got to look yourself in the mirror if you're this coaching staff. I mean, he was saying it, and usually those guys don't criticize all that hard. And they were last night with this Jet team. Really, really bad. Really bad performance.
Yeah, I would say Ron Rivera is one of those guys that likes to stand on the sideline and not really say much. I did see Rob Saleh screaming a few games ago. I remember down the sideline about a spot or something was going on. And, I mean, look, you could take a picture of any coach on the sideline, and for a large portion of the game, they'll either have their headset on talking to their coordinators or talking to, game management person up in the box or whatever. I'm not going to get into, I said that about Ron Rivera, exactly what you just said about Rob Saleh about 3 weeks ago. And then the last couple of weeks, Ron Rivera's kind of gotten re-engaged on the sideline. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, he has every right to pull that quarterback over and say, what the hell are we doing? Are we going to play here today? Are we going to get something done? Are we just going to and he has a, if I were him, I mean, just for, I don't know, a release of tension or something, you got to sooner or later put the other guy in. Even if he's for maybe a series or two or a quarter, like, hey, Zach, come over here, sit down. We're going to put this other guy in there, and they're afraid to put the other guy in there. They don't have another guy. That's the problem.
Exactly. I mean, they brought in one of Aaron Rodgers' buddies, just like they brought in all the rest of his buddies, and they probably don't trust that he could play, and they're dying on the Zach Wilson hill. I mean, it's just one of these things where, like, if you get in an argument with your friend or your spouse, and you back them into a corner and you know that you're right and they know that they're wrong, but they're not backing down because of stubbornness and they just keep doubling down on the wrong point over and over and over again. That's what the Jets are doing with Zach Wilson. And I would love Love to see somebody else in there. Trust me. And I am of the belief anybody to give a shot to see what's going on other than Zach Wilson. I mean, none of us knew who the hell Mike White was, and he went in there and played amazing football before getting his ass kicked and hurt. And we put himself in bad positions, obviously, and he couldn't stay healthy. But we had no idea who the hell that guy was. And he just jumped in and won football games for him and played some of the best quarterback we've seen in this city for like the better part of a decade. So maybe you do throw in Tim Boyle. Maybe you do throw in Trevor Siemian if you're not the Jets, but the Jets will continue with Zach Wilson. He's going to be once again on national TV on Sunday Night Football. I mean, the Raiders aren't any good, but obviously they got the boost from Antonio Pierce, so they're inspired. But it's another national TV game where we got to watch him struggle. You
don't think Max Crosby is watching this tape of last night's game, just licking his chops, and here comes another 3 or 4 sacks for me. I mean, that's probably what he's thinking about. But if you would have told me that Justin Herbert was going to go, 16 of 30 for 136 yards and be sacked 5 times, and your team was going to lose 27-6.
Yeah.
If you're a defensive player, so what happens in situations like this is the defense is pissed. I can tell you.
Of course.
I know it's just human nature. It's human nature. All of their fans, their friends, their family members, everybody on Twitter, social media is exacerbating the problem that they have, telling them how good they are, but how crappy their quarterback is. And so here we are again, a year removed, in the same situation that they were last year. And I don't know if they're going to make up T-shirts this year or not. Yeah. I don't know whose T-shirt, whose face would be on the T-shirt. But it's the same thing as what happened last year. Now, this was not supposed to happen, in all fairness, for the Jets.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers' team. And it turned out that it's now Zach Wilson's team. And it's unfortunate what happened to Aaron, but this kid has not learned anything. He hasn't, I wouldn't say anything. He turns it over. They drop the ball. They cannot overcome any sort of adversity within a series or a set of downs, if you will. They have no confidence that they can move the ball down the field consistently.
I mean, I sat here and said that exact point after Aaron Rodgers got hurt and said how he's just not going to get better. He can't play. It's the same thing as last year. And all these Jet fans called up, he can get better. I mean, come on. Haven't you seen people improve before and this and that? I'm like, okay, well, let's just see some of it. And I'll be fair, there was one glimpse. There was one really impressive glimpse against the Chiefs. And since then, it's been nothing. It's been 2 or 3 throws a game. And sometimes in garbage time, like last night. I mean, it's horrible to watch this team with this much talent go down because they have a quarterback who can't play football. I watch Garrett Wilson and see we all see this. One of those guys that just jumps off the page. Like, you could never have seen football in your entire life and then put on a game for somebody and say, hey, who's the best player out there? And Garrett Wilson just jumps off. And I'm just thinking, imagine if this guy had a real quarterback. Imagine. He would be right there with Justin Jefferson, right there with Jamar Chase. He'd be right there at the top of the league, leading the league in yards and catches and touchdowns. He's that good. But he has to go back with his hang-dogging with his head, as the caddy once told me, no hang-dogging.
No hang-dogging,
But he has to hang-dog going on. This guy, as good as he is, has to go off to the sideline, as he said after the game, and look his defense in the eye after a 3-and-out. And
he hates it. He hates walking off looking at his defense, and that's what he said after the game last night.
And I'll give you one more Troy Aikman. This was I know Eddie watches this at like 1 o'clock in the morning with a Scott Van Pelt hit that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman do. This is a clip I saw this morning. Troy Aikman says, I mean, it's hard to look at the Jets tonight and say that they're good. I think they're a bad team with a great defense. I didn't see anything tonight that suggests they're a playoff team.
Well, offensively,
I mean, that's about as strong as Troy Aikman will be.
Yeah.
I mean, he hated the Jets last night. He was so annoyed by them.
Well, he sees the offensive line struggling. He sees the quarterback not being able to handle that struggle in front of him. He's perturbed by the amount of penalties. I mean, there's basically 16 negative plays when you think about it. There's 8 sacks, right?
Yep.
and there were 8 penalties. So those are all negatives for the offense. And 2 of those sacks resulted in recovered fumbles by the Chargers.
Yep, that's right.
So, I mean, just those plays alone right there, it's going to be impossible to overcome, especially with a kid who doesn't have the awareness or the leadership qualities that you have to have at that position.
Zach Wilson sucks.
It's not fair, but I will say that we've been here and I've been trying to be as patient and as try to explain some of the difficulties that he's been dealing with, but eventually you see it. You know he doesn't have it. Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.